Marvelous Halloween, friends and loved ones, how are you today? That's right, it's Halloween again, one of my favorite times of the year. Bust out the candy and let things get scary. Haunted tombs and spooky rooms, just skeletons of fun to be had by all. You know, there is one person who really helped shape my love of Halloween, even at a young age. This person also happened to be my very first crush, so let's get this out of the way. The star of tonight's episode is none other than the Queen of Halloween herself, the Mistress of the Dark, Elvira. For those of you who don't know, Elvira is a character from the 80s, created and portrayed by the legendary Cassandra Peterson as the host of Movie Macabre, which highlighted and lovingly spoofed horror films, classics and schlock alike. Elvira's gotten 2 full cinematic movies of her own and hasn't stopped there. Peterson's character has graced action figures, comic books, pinball machines, and so much more. It's easy to see why Elvira has made her mark as a pop culture phenomenon. I mean, just spending a bit of time around her, you'll quickly notice 2 pretty big things that make her so appealing. Her incredibly sweet charm and her delightfully dark sense of humor.
Trust me, I know these things.
Now, as much as I would love to talk about Elvira's show or her movies, at the end of the day, this is a show about video games. And you don't make it through decades of adoration without having a couple of video games to show for it. So let's take a look at some Elvira video games and see just how they hold up. Starting off our list is the very first game based on the character, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. This was a point-and-click adventure RPG title created by Horrorsoft. The story loosely ties into the film it's named after, with Elvira inheriting a castle, but due to some mishaps, she summons hordes of monsters intent on reviving her ancestor Imelda, who aims to take over the world. Elvira is captured, and she hires you to come and rescue her. Wait, so we're not playing as Elvira? What kind of game series names itself after the character you're rescuing rather than the character you're playing as? Well, I'm not wrong. I say she's captured, but she actually seems to have pretty free-roaming access around the place. In fact, you're the one who gets kidnapped and thrown in the dungeon after only taking 2 steps, and she has to come rescue you. Your character in this game doesn't have a name, so I'm going to call him Dropjaw McBrowncoat. I am so good at names. You know, to give old Droppy here some credit, that's probably how I'd react if Elvira showed up in my doorway. The game is filled with a lot of Elvira-style humor, which made it super enjoyable. The castle area is huge, with lots of enemies to fight and items to find. I often found myself getting lost in the castle and having trouble exploring, but you get used to it pretty quickly. This is a really solid adventure title, and the inclusion of Elvira just makes it even better. And the deaths in this game are actually kinda gruesome for 1990. Dropjaw McBrowncoat. He died the way he lived, with a stupid look on his face. In 1992, Horrorsoft followed up on this game with the sequel, Elvira 2: The Jaws of Cerberus. Once again, you're playing as someone rescuing Elvira rather than the Mistress of the Dark herself, but in this one you're her boyfriend, so I'm pretty cool with that. Unlike the first game, you're not exploring a creepy old castle, but a modern film studio built on haunted grounds. I like this setting a lot better for the character, and overall, everything this one offers makes the game feel like a step up from the first one. The graphics and overall interface are improved immensely. Make sure you save often though, because this one seems a bit less forgiving in the death department. Though I love that in most of the death faces, your character just looks like he's trying to remember if he left the stove on. Getting away from the adventure game series, let's jump back to 1991 with Elvira, the arcade game, which is actually a misleading title since this game was never released in arcades. We get to watch this opening cutscene where Elvira is having some sort of dream, and there's a wizard king shooting lightning at snow globes? I couldn't really tell you, but what I do know is this is the first game where we actually get to play as Elvira. I think that's enough reason to be excited. Once you get into the game, you choose whether to visit a fire world or an ice world. Whichever one you pick will drop you into a fairly open platformer. It's not just getting from start to finish, but exploring the sprawling worlds and finding something. I'm gonna be honest, I was never able to figure out what exactly I was supposed to do. Elvira's walk cycle looks pretty good, and she can shoot an unlimited amount of daggers at the constant barrage of enemies coming at her. Like this guy who's just throwing shoes at me. Quit being such a heel, dude! Death. By shoes. Unfortunately, this game suffers from one major flaw. The camera is way too zoomed in and doesn't give us a good view of what's ahead of us or below us. This makes nearly every jump feel like a leap of faith. Do you know where the next platform is? Because I sure don't. Let's just try going down a little bit and... moving on. If you were paying attention earlier, you may recall I mentioned Elvira had graced a couple of pinball machines. Her first pinball cabinet was Elvira and the Party Monsters in 1989, and she had a follow-up machine, Scared Stiff, in 1996. I actually remember playing the Scared Stiff machine at a local pizzeria when I was a kid, but once again, this is a show about video games, and I wouldn't be bringing these up if these beloved pinball machines didn't give us a little bit more Queen of Halloween in our video games. The first of which is Pinball Jam for the Atari Lynx, which featured the Elvira and the Party Monsters machine. And I've gotta say, for a 1992 handheld title, this is a pretty fun recreation of the cabinet. Elvira herself even delivers some delightful chip-tuned voice clips. Also, I love that the cover art for this game is just Elvira standing next to a lion holding a gun. I mean, I get why he's from another table in the game, but still, this is a buddy cop movie I would watch. But if you really want to experience Elvira pinball in video game form, you've got to go with the Pinball Arcade. Both of her tables can be purchased via DLC, and they're really fun recreations. Incredibly well done, and the game also provides a lot of information and history on whatever pinball machine you're playing on. I'd recommend this to pinball fans, but honestly, I'm assuming they've already got it. But if you're an Elvira fan who enjoys the occasional pinball game, give it a look. Or if you're not a fan of pinball at all, feel free to at least join me in a giggle knowing a couple of the games on this list contain balls, bouncing, and plenty of Elvira voice clips. Balls. Pain was a PlayStation Network title created by Idle Minds back in 2007, and while it's not strictly an Elvira title, that didn't stop her from making an appearance as a DLC character. Pain is exactly what it sounds like. You choose a character, put them in your catapult, and try to cause them as much pain as humanly possible. It's got pretty fun graphics and quite a few game modes to explore. There is just something immensely satisfying about launching ragdoll characters around a big chaotic level, and Elvira fits in pretty well with the game's sense of humor.
Is this because I said Frankenstein was more attractive than you? Ow! Oh, ow!
And that about does it for Elvira video games. I hope you've enjoyed Hit It Rich Slots, the crazy fast-paced slot machine game by Zynga, Zynga, Zynga! With dozens of machines to choose from. But look, Elvira, now just spin, spin, spin! Do you have any idea what's going on? We don't, but look, you're winning! Slot machines, Elvira, Zynga! So there you have it, a look at some of the Elvira video games out there. I don't think I'd recommend the arcade title, but both the adventure games are pretty good. I'd recommend Jaws of Cerberus. All the other games are pretty okay in their own right, and they're just given a little bit of extra oomph thanks to Elvira's natural charm and likability. I think that's gonna do it for this episode, so to all of you out there, happy Halloween, and
Unpleasant dreams.
hey everybody, thanks for watching my video on Elvira video games. If you liked what you saw, please consider giving this video a like, or maybe consider subscribing if you want to see more of my videos in the future. If you want to see another one of my videos right now, you can click that TV down there to check out my thoughts on the PS1 classic fighting game Bloody Roar. And if you really like my show, why not consider becoming a Patreon supporter so your name can appear in these ending credits. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.
Oh, I know you're enjoying my TNA.